Today I'm going to be talking about footwear and in particular cleats, especially given some of my recent experience. So as a little background, I've been wearing minimalist shoes. I started wearing 5 and 5 finger shoes about 11, 12 years ago, maybe 11 years. Started wearing Vivos, Zero shoes, Field Grounds in the last couple of years. And I've kind of weaned myself away from cleats, particularly as I haven't been playing as many competitive sports that involve cleats. And especially since opening my studio, I've spent a lot more time barefoot. Recently, getting back into Ultimate Frisbee, I went to put on my old cleats, and they felt like ice skates. It was terrible, and it's kind of eye-opening to think about. These used to feel normal to me. Of course, I would get foot pain and toe pain and all that, and you just chalk it up to like, oh, I guess that's just how life is. You put on your cleats, you feel pain eventually. That shouldn't be how it is. Now here's some things I want to compare to the other shoes. So first off, things that I look at and that I notice is toe box. So if you look at this cleat, and this is heavily worn, so this is probably a little bit more mobile than it used to be, just saying. If you look at this cleat, look at the toe box, okay? Compare that to the Zero shoes. Huge difference, huge difference. This comes to a point, right? Right. And the width here, big toe should be here, little toe here. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now compare that to the 5 finger shoes. Way, way different. Of course, not everyone's foot is going to splay exactly like that. Genetically, we're all a little bit different, but this is generally the ideal. And this is what we're shoving our feet into. Crazy. No wonder it felt like an ice skate. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the forefoot mobility. So, of course, with this, it's very flexible, right? Here, very flexible and light. Right now, based on what you've conditioned your feet to do, that might not be the absolute best thing for you. Also, if you're running full speed and cutting on a dime, you might want a little bit of rigidity there, but not so much that it prevents your feet from doing what feet are supposed to do, which is to bend, right? We need that. We need our big toe, we need our feet, we need that bend in order to be efficient as humans and move well. So look at this. Not great forefoot mobility. So that's the next thing I look at. Toe box, forefoot mobility of the shoe. I have to press pretty hard. I'm not acting here. All right, I have to press pretty hard. And these are heavily worn, over thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. And when I first got them, knowing this was important, I bent them hundreds of times to give them more mobility. Still not ideal. But this is actually better than a lot of cleats out there that are so rigid they won't bend at all, which is insane. So let's compare this. This Nike Vapor TD, I think, to the New Balance Freeze 2.0. Freeze as in ice, F-R-E-E-Z-E, not like Nike Free. So look here, at first glance, they look pretty similar. All right, not terribly different. However, one important difference is in that toe box. You notice here, this comes to a little bit of a point. All right, here it's flatter and this part is wider. It's subtle, but it makes a really big difference. All right, so it actually makes quite a big difference. Then look at the forefoot mobility. All right, so you can see this bends, and like I said, I'm not acting. This really does bend quite a lot more than the other one. All right, and these are brand new. I've worn these for like an hour total. All right, so a lot more forefoot mobility there. Then you can look at this way, the flexibility of the upper. So when it comes to cleats, that's another thing you want to look at because these look kind of similar this way, right? They're not that different, but the flexibility, this upper is much more rigid. It just doesn't move as much. And when your feet are in it, and it's not, here's the other thing. This doesn't look that terrible. Again, when your feet are in it, this is out like this because your feet are in the way, right? It's not flat. It's out here. When it goes flat like this, it goes in more and it narrows your toes even more. Here, this actually widens when your feet are in because it's a bigger, there's more area here, like this, okay? There's more area for your toes to go. Really, really important. So that flexibility and the amount of actual fabric on the upper plays a big role in how much freedom your toes and your foot have to move. Now, another thing I look at with the cleats is the surface area. All right, so this isn't too bad. I've seen a lot worse, particularly cleats that have like a thin, long blade on the heel that tends to be higher, which makes it like a high heel, which you do not want to play sports in. All right, and it makes it much more unstable when you have like a blade, 2 blades in the back of your cleat versus having a little bit more surface area. So I look at surface area as another important factor here. So we have these, there's a decent amount of surface area, it's not terrible, but compare this with this. There's more cleats, they go in more directions, and at any one point you have more contact with the ground. And a lot of the cleats are relatively small too, which is really nice, all right? Because you're not elevated really high off the ground, but you still have a lot of cleats to dig in with. All right, so that being said, the final thing is the feel. Because yeah, in theory, I can talk about all this, and ultimately what matters most is when you put them on, how do you feel in them and how do you feel moving around? For me, when I put my feet in these, this absolutely feels like an ice skate. I cannot move my big toe at all. It's smushed in, and I feel like I said, like I'm on an ice skate. I feel unstable. I feel like I don't have control because I'm so used to using my big toe and using my whole foot to move my body and propel my body when I run, sprint, jump. So that's a big issue, and the fact that we're conditioned to feel that way is ridiculous. And I didn't used to feel that. I didn't used to even notice it, but now I do. This one, way different. When I first got these a couple days ago, I was skeptical because it looked similar. Before I started examining the little subtle differences, I was a little worried. But when I put it on, I had so much more room to move my foot. I felt like I could plant my big toe down. I felt like I could move all of my toes individually. And what I found was when I started running around, cutting, I felt way, way more in control, and my body felt better. Because here's the thing, if you ever tried running on ice skates, it's not ideal. Trust me, don't try. So, all of that is to say, New Balance Freeze 2.0, I like them a lot. They're far from perfect. There's a lot more we could do. You know, widen this toe box a little bit more. Maybe make this just a hair less rigid, though I do think some rigidity is smart in a cleat. But ultimately, the whole cleat industry, footwear is getting better as a whole, but cleats, it's just horrific. It's like malpractice. It's unbelievable that these companies are touting crap like this and saying this is scientifically whatever. They use all these buzzwords, some other cleats that I won't mention I got recently, all these buzzwords about this is why we did this, you know, we looked at all the different patterns the cleats should be in. I put them on and they're crap, and they don't let your feet work like feet should. So ultimately, you have to use what feels best to you, but I would encourage you to find an option that lets your feet at least move somewhat, all right? And if you're all the way on one end of the continuum of stiff, rigid, tiny toe box, ice skating, see if you can just bump down the continuum a little bit. Long term, your body will thank you for it. We should not be conditioning our body to be in cleats. I know some athletes have to be in them a lot, and I totally get that. But how can we kind of marry that with our long-term health? I can't totally answer that, but hopefully this helped. Thanks for listening.